Some fines can't be measured in money, only in the weight of a mother's heart. The sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 44, casting long shadows across the empty road. The air was thick with August heat, the kind that made everything feel slower, heavier. In the distance, a single car moved steadily along the two-lane highway, a faded blue sedan with a dent in the rear bumper and a window that didn't roll down all the way. Inside, Gloria Hayes gripped the steering wheel with both hands, her knuckles pale against her dark skin. She was 52 years old, but today she felt older. Her uniform, a pale green scrub top with her name stitched over the pocket, was wrinkled from a double shift at St. Mary's Hospital. Her eyes, red-rimmed and tired, stared straight ahead. In the back seat, a small duffel bag sat beside a folded blanket. Inside the bag was everything she'd been able to scrape together over the last 3 months. $7,400. Every cent. It was meant for her son's surgery, a procedure that could save his vision. Without it, the doctor said, he'd be blind by Christmas. Gloria's hands trembled slightly as she checked the rearview mirror. She'd been driving carefully, staying under the speed limit, signaling every turn. She couldn't afford a ticket. She couldn't afford anything going wrong. But life, she had learned, didn't care what you could afford. Behind her, red and blue lights suddenly flared to life. Her heart dropped. She pulled over slowly, the gravel crunching beneath her tires as she eased onto the shoulder. The highway stretched empty in both directions. No other cars, no witnesses. Just her, the officer, and the hum of cicadas in the dry grass. Gloria put the car in park and placed both hands on the wheel where they could be seen. She kept her breathing steady, even though her pulse was hammering in her throat. The officer's door opened. Boots hit the pavement. Heavy, deliberate steps. She didn't look back. She kept her eyes forward, waiting. A knock on the window. She rolled it down, slowly, because it stuck halfway and she had to crank it by hand. The officer stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, his mirrored sunglasses reflecting her own face back at her. His badge read Officer Grayson. His jaw was set, his expression unreadable. "License and registration," he said. His voice was flat, almost bored. "Yes, sir." Gloria's voice was soft, polite. She reached carefully into the glove compartment, moving slowly so he could see everything she was doing. Her hand shook as she handed him the documents. He took them without a word and walked back to his patrol car. Gloria sat in silence, her mind racing. What did I do? Was I speeding? Did I miss a stop sign? She replayed the last 10 miles in her head, searching for a mistake. She found none. Minutes passed. The heat inside the car became stifling. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but she didn't move. She just waited. Finally, Officer Grayson returned. He stood at her window, staring down at her with those mirrored lenses. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "do you know why I pulled you over?" Gloria swallowed. "No, sir. I don't." He tapped her license against his palm. "You crossed the yellow line back there. Twice." Her breath caught. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I've been working a long shift, and That's reckless driving," he interrupted. His tone was cold. "That's a serious offense." Gloria felt the world tilt. And then he said the words that would shatter everything. "The fine is $8,000. Part 1. The setup, approximately 600 words. 3 months earlier, life had been different. Not easy. Gloria's life had never been easy. But there had been hope. There had been rhythm. Wake at 5. Make breakfast for her son, Marcus, who was 17 and still believed the world could be kind if you worked hard enough. Drive to the hospital. Work her shift as a nursing assistant, changing bedpans, comforting patients, holding the hands of the dying. Come home. cook dinner, help Marcus with his homework, sleep. Repeat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. Then came the diagnosis. Marcus had been complaining about headaches, blurry vision. Gloria thought it was stress from school, maybe too much time on his phone. But when he walked into a doorframe one morning, walked straight into it like it wasn't there, she knew something was wrong. The ophthalmologist's office smelled like antiseptic and artificial lavender. The doctor was a kind woman with silver hair and a gentle voice. She showed Gloria the scans, pointed to the shadows behind Marcus's eyes. Retinal detachment, she said. Both eyes. It's progressing quickly. Gloria had stared at the images, not understanding. What does that mean? It means if we don't operate soon, he'll lose his sight. Permanently. The surgery cost $42,000. Insurance would cover some of it, but not enough. Not nearly enough. Gloria needed to come up with $8,000 on her own. $8,000 she didn't have. So she started saving. She picked up extra shifts, slept 4 hours a night, skipped meals. She sold her mother's wedding ring, the only thing of value she owned. She borrowed from friends, from church, from anyone who would listen. 3 months later, she had $7,400. It wasn't enough. But the surgery was scheduled for next week, and the hospital had agreed to let her pay the rest in installments. She just needed to get there. That morning, Marcus had hugged her before she left for work. He couldn't see her clearly anymore. His world was a blur of shapes and shadows. But he found her anyway, wrapped his long arms around her, and whispered, "Thank you, Mama." She'd held him tight, blinking back tears. "You're gonna be fine, baby. I promise." Now, sitting on the side of Route 44 with a police officer staring down at her, that promise felt like a lie. $8,000? She whispered. Officer Grayson nodded. "You were driving recklessly. You could have caused an accident. Could have killed someone." I wasn't." Her voice broke. She took a breath, steadied herself. "Sir, I understand. I really do. But I don't have that kind of money." His expression didn't change. "That's not my problem. Please." The word came out small, desperate. "My son, he's sick. He needs surgery. Everything I have is for him." Officer Grayson's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, everyone has a story. If I let you go, I'd have to let everyone go." Gloria felt something crack inside her chest. Not anger, not even fear, just a deep, bone-tired sadness. She looked down at her hands, still gripping the steering wheel. Her wedding ring was gone. Her savings were in the back seat. Her son was at home, waiting. "How do I pay it?" She asked quietly. "You'll receive a notice in the mail. You have 30 days. 30 days. The surgery was in 6. Officer Grayson handed back her license. "Drive carefully." "Ma'am." He walked away. Gloria sat there, alone. As the sun sank lower and the shadows grew long. Part 2. The conflict. Approximately 600 words. Gloria didn't move for a long time. The patrol car's engine rumbled behind her, waiting. Officer Grayson sat inside, writing up the citation. The red and blue lights still flashed, painting the road in silent alarm. She stared at the dashboard. At the small photograph taped above the radio, Marcus at his 8th grade graduation, grinning wide, his eyes bright and clear. Back when he could still see the world, her chest felt tight. Her hands were numb. $8,000. The number echoed in her mind, impossible and cruel. It was more than she made in 2 months. More than she'd saved in 3. It was the exact amount she needed for Marcus's surgery, as if the universe had decided to test her, to see how much a mother could endure before breaking. She thought about arguing, thought about explaining again, pleading. But she'd seen the look in Officer Grayson's eyes, cold, detached, unmoved. He didn't care about Marcus. He didn't care about her. To him, she was just another violation, another number in his quota. The passenger door suddenly opened. Gloria's head snapped up. Officer Grayson slid into the seat beside her, holding a clipboard. He didn't ask permission. He just sat there, filling out the form with slow, deliberate strokes. "Sir, you can't. I'm completing the citation," he said without looking at her. "You'll need to sign it." Gloria's pulse quickened. The space felt too small, too close. She pressed herself against the driver's side door, her heart pounding. "Sign here." He thrust the clipboard toward her. Her hand shook as she took it. The paper was dense with legal language, but one line stood out. Bold and merciless. "Fine. $8,000. I can't pay this," she said again, her voice barely audible. "Then you'll face additional penalties. License suspension. Possible jail time." Jail. The word hit her like a fist. If she went to jail, who would take care of Marcus? Who would make sure he got to his surgery? "Please," she whispered. "There has to be another way." Officer Grayson finally looked at her. His sunglasses were off now, and she could see his eyes, pale blue, sharp, without warmth. "You broke the law, ma'am. Actions have consequences. I didn't mean to cross the line. I was tired. I've been working double shifts to save for my sons. I don't need your life story." His voice was hard, final. "Sign the paper." Gloria's throat burned. She wanted to scream, to cry, to beg. But she'd learned long ago that begging didn't change anything. The world didn't bend for people like her dad, so she sighed. Her hand moved across the page, her signature shaky and small. When she finished, Officer Grayson took the clipboard back and tore off a yellow copy. He handed it to her. "You have 30 days to pay," he said. "If you don't, a warrant will be issued for your arrest." He opened the door and stepped out. Gloria sat frozen, the yellow paper trembling in her hands. Officer Grayson paused before closing the door. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Hesitation, maybe, or doubt. But it was gone as quickly as it came. "Drive safely," he said. Then he was gone. Gloria watched in the rearview mirror as the patrol car pulled away, its lights fading into the distance. The road was empty again. Silent dot, she looked down at the citation, at the number that would destroy everything she'd worked for. And then, finally, she let herself cry. Part 3. The struggle, approximately 600 words. The drive home was a blur. Gloria's hands moved on autopilot, turning the wheel, pressing the pedals, but her mind was somewhere else. Somewhere dark and heavy, where numbers swirled and solutions didn't exist. $8,000 dot. She couldn't borrow it. She'd already asked everyone she knew. Her sister in Atlanta was drowning in her own debt. The church had given what they could. Her co-workers had emptied their pockets months ago. She couldn't skip the fine. Officer Grayson had made that clear. 30 days or jail. But she couldn't skip Marcus's surgery either. The doctors had been firm. Any longer, and the damage would be irreversible. It was an impossible choice. And yet, she had to choose by the time she pulled into the driveway of their small rental house. The sun had set completely. The porch light was on. Marcus always left it on for her, and through the window. She could see him sitting at the kitchen table, his face close to a textbook, squinting. She sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to compose herself. She couldn't let him see her like this. Couldn't let him know how bad things were. But when she walked inside and saw him look up, his eyes unfocused, searching for her shape in the doorway, she almost broke again. "Mama?" His voice was soft, uncertain. "I'm here, baby." She forced a smile, though he couldn't see it. "How was your day?" "Fine." He closed the book carefully, his fingers tracing the edge. "I tried to study, but it's getting harder." Gloria set her purse on the counter, her hands trembling. "I know, but the surgery's next week. Just hold on a little longer." Marcus nodded, but his expression was distant, worried. He was 17, but in that moment, he looked much younger. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" The question hung in the air, fragile and afraid. Gloria crossed the room and sat beside him. She took his hand, rough and callous from the part-time job he'd taken at the grocery store, bagging groceries and stocking shelves even though he could barely see. He'd wanted to help, wanted to ease her burden. "We're going to be fine," she said, her voice steady even though her heart was breaking. "I promise." But that night, alone in her room, Gloria sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the yellow citation. The number glowed in the lamplight, mocking her. She thought about calling the police station, asking if there was a payment plan. But she already knew the answer. The system didn't bend. It didn't care about sick sons or desperate mothers. She thought about not paying, about letting the warrant come, facing jail, hoping Marcus could stay with her sister. But that would mean abandoning him when he needed her most. She thought about stealing, about desperation making her into someone she wasn't. And then she thought about giving up. The thought came quietly, like a whisper. What if you just stopped? What if she let it all go? Let the world take what it wanted. Stop fighting a battle she couldn't win. But then she heard Marcus's voice from the other room, soft and uncertain. "Mama? You okay?" And just like that, the thought disappeared. She folded the citation carefully and placed it in her drawer, beneath her Bible and a photograph of Marcus as a baby. Then she knelt beside her bed and prayed, not for a miracle, but for strength, because even if she couldn't win, she wouldn't stop fighting. Not yet. Part 4. The turning point, approximately 600 words. The next morning, Gloria woke before dawn. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that number, $8,000. It burned behind her eyelids, like a brand. But there was no time for exhaustion. She had a shift at the hospital in an hour, and Marcus needed breakfast before she left. She moved through the house quietly, making oatmeal and toast, packing Marcus's lunch, a sandwich, an apple, a bottle of water. Simple things. The only thing she could afford. Marcus stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. He moved carefully, one hand trailing along the wall for balance. His world was mostly shapes now, shadows and light. "Morning, baby," Gloria said softly. "Morning." He sat at the table, reaching for the bowl she'd placed in front of him. His hand missed it by a few inches. Gloria gently guided his fingers to the spoon. He didn't say anything. Neither did she. But the silence was heavy with things unsaid. After breakfast, she drove him to school. He didn't complain, even though she knew how hard it was for him. Navigating hallways he couldn't see, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. "Love you, Mama," he said as he got out of the car. "Love you more," she whispered back. She watched him walk toward the building. His backpack swung over one shoulder, his steps slow and careful. A teacher met him at the door, guiding him inside. Gloria sat in the parking lot for a long moment, her forehead resting on the steering wheel. Then her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press the green button. "Hello? Is this Gloria Hayes?" A man's voice, professional and clipped. "Yes. Who's this?" "This is Officer Grayson." "From yesterday." Gloria's stomach dropped. "Yes, officer. I remember." There was a pause. Static crackled on the line. "I'm calling because there's been a mistake." Her heart leapt. "A mistake?" "The fine. It shouldn't have been that high. I need you to come down to the station. We'll sort it out." Gloria's hands were shaking. "What do you mean? How much is it supposed to be?" Another pause. Longer this time. Just come to the station. 34 Maple Street. Ask for me." He hung up before she could respond. Gloria sat in stunned silence, the phone still pressed to her ear. A mistake. Hope flickered in her chest, fragile and desperate. Maybe the fine would be smaller. Maybe she could afford it. Maybe, but then doubt crept in. Why would he call her? Why now? And why did his voice sound strange? Not cold, like yesterday, but uncertain. Almost guilty. She didn't trust it. But she didn't have a choice. The police station was a squat brick building on the edge of town, surrounded by a chain-link fence and a parking lot full of patrol cars. Gloria pulled in slowly, her heart hammering. Inside, the air smelled like burnt coffee and cleaning solution. A receptionist sat behind a thick glass partition, barely looking up as Gloria approached. "I'm here to see Officer Grayson," Gloria said quietly. The receptionist nodded and picked up a phone. A moment later, a door buzzed open. Officer Grayson stood in the hallway, no longer in uniform. He wore jeans and a plain gray shirt. Without the sunglasses, the badge, the authority, he looked ordinary, almost human. "Ms. Hayes," he said. "Thank you for coming." Gloria didn't move. "You said there was a mistake." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, there was." He gestured down the hall. "Can we talk? In private?" Gloria hesitated. Then she followed him. Part 5. The act of kindness or courage. Approximately 600 words. Officer. Grayson led her to a small break room. A table, 2 chairs, a coffee maker that sputtered and hissed. He gestured for her to sit. She did, though every muscle in her body was tense, ready to run. He sat across from her, hands folded on the table. For a long moment, he didn't speak, just stared at his hands, jaw tight. Finally, he looked up. "I couldn't sleep last night." Gloria didn't respond. She just waited. "I kept thinking about what you said. About your son. His surgery." He exhaled slowly. "I went home, and I couldn't stop thinking about it." "Officer Grayson, Michael," he interrupted. "My name's Michael." She blinked, surprised. He'd been so cold yesterday, so distant. Now he was giving her his first name. "Michael," she repeated carefully. "You said there was a mistake with the fine." He nodded. "Yeah, the mistake was me." Gloria's heart sank. This wasn't about reducing the fine. This was something else. Michael rubbed his face, exhausted. "I've been a cop for 12 years. I've written thousands of tickets. And every time I told myself I was just doing my job. Following the rules. Keeping people safe." He paused. "But last night, I realized something. Sometimes the rules, they're not fair." Gloria's throat tightened. "So what are you saying?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The yellow citation. He placed it on the table between them. "I'm saying I was wrong." He took a pen from his pocket, clicked it once, and drew a single line through the fine amount. Then he wrote something else in its place. He slid the paper across the table. Gloria looked. DOWNFINE. $0. Her breath caught. "I don't understand." "I'm voiding the ticket," Michael said quietly. "You don't know anything." Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed a hand to her mouth, unable to speak. "I don't know if it'll make a difference," he continued. "I don't know if it'll help with your son's surgery. But at least it won't make things worse." Gloria stared at him, at this man who had been so cruel yesterday and was now offering her a lifeline. "Why?" she whispered. Michael looked away. "Because I have a daughter." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "She's 8, he said. "And last year, she got sick. Really sick. We almost lost her." His voice cracked. "I remember sitting in the hospital, holding my wife's hand, praying, begging God for one more chance. And I remember thinking, if someone asked me to pay $8,000, $80,000, anything, I'd do it. I'd give everything. He met her eyes again. Yesterday, I saw you as just another driver breaking the law. But last night, I saw you as a mother. And I thought about what I would have done if someone had treated me the way I treated you. Gloria's tears spilled over. Thank you, she choked out. Thank you. Michael shook his head. Don't thank me. I should have done this yesterday. He stood, sliding the voided citation toward her. Take care of your son, Miss Hayes. Gloria picked up the paper with trembling hands. She looked at the number $0 and felt something break open inside her chest. Not despair. Not fear. Hope. She stood, wiping her eyes. Your daughter. Is she okay now? Michael smiled, small but real. Yeah, she's okay. Gloria nodded. Good. That's good. She left the station in a daze, clutching the voided citation like a sacred thing. Part 6. The Realization. Approximately 600 words. Michael Grayson sat alone in the break room for a long time after Gloria left. The coffee maker hissed and gurgled. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Outside, the sounds of the station continued, phones ringing, doors slamming, officers laughing. But Michael heard none of it. He stared at the table where Gloria had sat, where her hands had trembled as she held that piece of paper. He remembered the look in her eyes, disbelief, gratitude, relief, and he remembered the look she'd had yesterday, fear, desperation. He'd caused that. Michael leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He'd been a cop for 12 years, and he'd always prided himself on being fair by the book. He didn't let emotions cloud his judgment. He didn't play favorites, but somewhere along the way, he'd stopped seeing people. He'd started seeing violations, quotas, numbers. Yesterday, he'd looked at Gloria Hayes and seen a reckless driver. Someone who'd crossed the yellow line, who could have caused an accident. He'd done his job, written the ticket, moved on. But last night, lying in bed beside his wife, staring at the ceiling, he'd seen something else. He'd seen his daughter's face, pale and small in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines, fighting for her life. He'd seen his wife's tears, her hand gripping his so tight it hurt. He'd seen himself, broken and desperate, willing to do anything to save her. And he'd seen Gloria, a mother, a woman doing everything she could to save her son. He thought about the $8,000, about how that number, arbitrary, bureaucratic, could destroy a life. He'd thought about the power he held, the authority, the ability to decide, with a stroke of a pen, whether someone's world crumbled or held together. And he'd realized something that made him sick. He'd used that power carelessly. Michael opened his eyes and stared at his hands. These hands had written that citation. These hands had taken away her hope. And now, these hands had given it back. But it wasn't enough. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Found the number for St. Mary's Hospital. He'd been there once, years ago, when his daughter was sick. He remembered the chapel, the cafeteria, the long sterile hallways. He dialed. St. Mary's Hospital, how can I direct your call? I need to speak to someone in billing, Michael said. About a patient. Marcus Hayes. There was a pause. Are you family? No, He hesitated. I'm someone who wants to help. 20 minutes later, Michael walked out of the station and got into his truck. He didn't go home. Instead, he drove across town to the bank. Inside, he spoke to a teller, filled out a form, and withdrew $5,000 from his savings account. It wasn't all of it. He had a family, a mortgage, bills, but it was what he could spare. He put the cash in an envelope, wrote from Marcus Hayes on the front, and sealed it. Then he drove to St. Mary's Hospital. He didn't go inside. He didn't want recognition, didn't want thanks. He just walked up to the front desk, handed the envelope to the receptionist, and said, "This is for Gloria Hayes. She works here. Please make sure she gets it." The receptionist looked at him, confused. "Who should I say it's from?" Michael shook his head. "Just tell her. Tell her it's from someone who understands." Then he turned and walked away. Part 7. Redemption or Forgiveness, approximately 600 words. Gloria found the envelope 2 days later. She'd been in the middle of her shift, changing the linens on a hospital bed, when one of the nurses called her over. "Gloria, someone left this for you at the front desk." Gloria wiped her hands on her scrubs and took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in unfamiliar handwriting. No return address. No explanation. She opened it carefully. And gasped. Inside were 50 $100 bills. $5,000. More money than she'd seen in one place in her entire life. Her knees went weak. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed, staring at the cash, unable to process what she was seeing. Who left this?" she whispered. The nurse shrugged. "Some guy. Didn't give his name. Just said it was for you." Gloria's hands shook as she counted the bills, once, twice, 3 times. It was real. All of it. With the $7,400 she'd already saved. This brought her total to $12,400. More than enough for Marcus's surgery. More than enough to finally breathe. Tears streamed down her face. She pressed the envelope to her chest and sobbed. Great. Heaving sobs of relief and gratitude and disbelief. Someone had seen her. Someone had cared. That evening, Gloria sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, the envelope still clutched in her hands. She'd called the billing department, confirmed the surgery payment, scheduled everything. Marcus would have his operation in 4 days, but she couldn't stop thinking about the man who'd given her this gift. She thought about Officer Grayson, Michael, and the way he'd looked at her when he voided the ticket. The guilt in his eyes. The humanity. And she knew, somehow, that it was him. She pulled out her phone and called the police station. "I'd like to leave a message for Officer Michael Grayson," she said when someone answered. "Sure, go ahead." Gloria took a breath. Tell him Gloria Hayes called. And tell him thank you for everything." She hung up before they could respond. 3 days later, Gloria was at home when there was a knock on her door. She opened it to find Michael standing on her porch, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. "Ms. Hayes," he said, "I hope it's okay that I came by." Gloria stepped aside. "Come in." They sat in her small living room, Gloria on the worn couch, Michael in the chair across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Gloria broke the silence. "It was you, wasn't it?" "The money." Michael nodded. "Yeah, why?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't." Gloria's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He met her gaze. "What I did to you, it wasn't right. I can't take it back, but I can try to make it better." Gloria reached across the space between them and took his hand. "You already did. The moment you voided that ticket, you gave me hope. The money, that was just. It was more than I ever could have asked for." Michael's throat worked. "How's your son?" "He's having surgery tomorrow," Gloria said, smiling through her tears. "Because of you, he's going to see again." Michael blinked hard, his own eyes glistening. "I'm glad." They sat together in the quiet, 2 strangers brought together by pain and redeemed by kindness. And in that moment, both of them understood something profound. Forgiveness wasn't just given. It was earned. One act of grace at a time. Part 8. Moral ending, approximately 600 words. 6 months later, Gloria stood in the kitchen of her small house, sunlight streaming through the window. She was making breakfast. Eggs, toast, fresh orange juice, humming softly to herself. Behind her, Marcus walked in, moving confidently now, no longer trailing his hand along the wall. His eyes were bright, clear, focused. He could see. "Morning, Mama," he said, grinning. "Morning, baby." She turned and looked at him, really looked at him, and her heart swelled. The surgery had been a success. The doctor said his vision was nearly perfect now. No more blur. No more shadows. He grabbed a piece of toast and leaned against the counter. "You know, I've been thinking." "About what?" "About what happened. With that cop. The ticket." He paused. "You never told me the whole story." Gloria set down her spatula and turned to face him. "What do you want to know? Why do you help us? I mean, cops don't just give people money." Gloria smiled softly. "No, they don't. But people do, when they remember what matters." Marcus frowned, thinking, "What do you mean?" She walked over and placed a hand on his cheek. "I mean that everyone makes mistakes, baby. Everyone has moments where they forget to see the person in front of them. But the best people, they find their way back. They choose kindness, even when it's hard." Marcus nodded slowly. "Do you think I'll ever meet him? Officer Grayson?" "Maybe," Gloria said. "But it doesn't matter if you do or don't. What matters is that you remember what he did. And that when you have the chance, when you have the power to help someone, you do it. Even if it costs you something." Marcus smiled. "I will, Mama, I promise." That afternoon, Gloria received a letter in the mail. No return address, but she recognized the handwriting. Inside was a single folded piece of paper and a photograph. The photograph showed a little girl, maybe 9 years old, with curly brown hair and a bright, gap-toothed smile. She was wearing a soccer uniform, holding a trophy. The note read, "Ms. Hayes, this is my daughter, Emma. She's doing great. Playing soccer, making friends, being a kid. I wanted you to know that because of you, I'm a better father, a better man. You showed me what grace looks like, even when the world isn't fair. I hope Marcus is doing well. I hope he gets to see all the beautiful things this world has to offer. Thank you for forgiving me." Gloria held the letter to her chest and closed her eyes. A tear slipping down her cheek. She thought about that day on Route 44, the fear, the despair, the impossible fine. She thought about how close she'd come to losing everything, and she thought about the man who'd changed his mind, who'd chosen kindness over cruelty, who'd reminded her that people could still surprise you. She walked to her room and placed the letter in her drawer, beside the voided citation and the photograph of Marcus. Then she went back to the kitchen, where her son was laughing at something on his phone, his eyes bright and full of life. And she thought, this is what redemption looks like. Not perfection, not absence of pain, but the choice, again and again, to see each other, to forgive, to hold on to hope. The world was still hard. It still wasn't fair. But kindness, she knew, was stronger than any fine, and forgiveness healed more than any law ever could.